as we talk about some of the challenges that athletes face, what are some signs that an athlete maybe should speak to a professional about what they're going through? I think that's, for me, is almost always the first step. Is that, hey, something to me is feeling different than it did before, or I feel like I'm going through something. But are there any particular warning signs or things like that that you think are like, hey, just talk to someone. This is the right path.
I would like to take care of it before any warning signs happen.
Yeah.
But I think we don't. And, I think about how many physios there are for every professional or collegiate sports team. If there's a high ankle fracture, we know, or not high ankle sprain, we know how long that rehab is. If there's a concussion protocol, they go through it. There's timelines for all these things. And like a lot of times the athlete isn't really given much of a choice about being out. It's just like, this takes 8 weeks to rehab. And we'll try to get you out a little sooner. But at the end of the day, like it takes that time. Mental health is a lot more kind of amorphous. And so there's not really there's no x-ray. There's no kind of table test that a physio can do or a psychiatrist can do to kind of grade a psychological concern. And not only that, but, think about when a player is injured and they finish the game. What do we all say? We go, wow, that's amazing. They played through that. They had a broken this, a pulled that, a sprained this, and they were hobbling off after the fourth quarter. But what willpower, what commitment. And we put them on a pedestal for doing that.
I'm guilty of that. The Kobe shooting the free throws after he tore his Achilles.
Yeah. But with mental health, like I think athletes try to do the same, which is play through. And for better or worse, I think until it's not, I think it's easier to play through a psychological injury than it is a physical one. And so I think there's a psychological feeling like if somebody doesn't finish a game because of a psychological reason, like that's weakness. And if somebody takes a week off because of a personal issue, people are going to speculate. Is it drugs? Is it this? Is it that? Are they in rehab? Or what is it? And so I think that there's doing the same exact rehab or recovery for a psychological reason is just not accepted like it is in a physical thing. And so I think that's where things start to unravel, is that we envision psychological issues so much different than physical ones, even though they both have somewhat timelines and courses and treatments. And, if somebody's in the physio room, it's like, hey, come in and we'll hang out while you're getting your leg worked on. And we've got 3 trainers here and there's a glass window and everybody can see in and while you're doing all your rehab. But if it's psychological, you're in a closed room and you sneak in, you sneak out. And I think that stigma is that's the warning sign for me, is that it's a societal issue.
Let's talk a little bit more about stigma. So Michael Phelps very famously was on Ritalin as a kid. He hated going to the nurse's office during lunch to take his Ritalin. He said it made him feel like he was different from the other kids. I don't know if necessarily the kids made fun of him or it was just this self-perceived thing. But I think overall there is a stigma around this. And there's some great athletes. I think Naomi Osaka has been very vocal about her mental health and been willing to step away, and it's been very well received. But where do you think the stigma originates from, and how do we hopefully get away from that? Very big question.
Yeah. I mean, the stigma is before our time, hundreds of years. I think since the days of the beginning of civilization, kind of, if you can't see it, it can't be that bad. And if it looks different, it can be good. And so this is as old as time is, that we kind of have a stigma with mental disorders, unfortunately. There are some societies in this world that kind of put people with mental disorders, schizophrenia, on a pedestal because they believe that they can kind of speak to they're gods. And so like there are some very finite civilizations that do kind of have a lack of stigma, almost a reverence for it. But in our society, absolutely not.